As we arrived at the ski resort, the air was crisp, and the snow gleamed under the bright sun. We were a group of friends, excited for a weekend of adventure and laughter. Little did we know, this trip would change our lives forever. The story. Our excitement was palpable as we unloaded our gear and headed towards the resort's main lodge. The receptionist greeted us with a warm smile, but something in her eyes hinted at a hidden secret. We brushed it off, attributing it to our imagination, and focused on settling in. The first day was filled with skiing and snowboarding. The fresh powder and the thrill of speeding down the slopes were exhilarating. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the mountains, we decided to explore the resort's surroundings. It was during this exploration that we stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin, half buried in snow. Curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to investigate. The door creaked open, revealing a room frozen in time. Dust particles floated in the still air, and old furniture stood covered in a thick layer of frost. It felt as if the cabin hadn't been touched for decades. As we ventured deeper into the cabin, we noticed an old grandfather clock, its hands frowned at 3:15. Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine as the temperature dropped dramatically. My breath formed clouds in the air, and an eerie silence enveloped us. It was then that we realized something was terribly wrong. The following day, strange occurrences began. Time seemed to stand still at certain moments, and shadows danced at the edge of our vision. We tried to rationalize it, blaming fatigue and the high altitude, but the sense of unease grew stronger. One evening, while gathered around the fireplace, we heard a distant, haunting melody. It was faint but unmistakable. Drawn by the sound, we followed it to the edge of the resort, where we found an old, frowning lake. The melody grew louder as we approached, and to our horror, we saw ghostly figures gliding across the ice. These figures were not human. They moved with an unnatural grace, their faces obscured by mist. Suddenly, they turned towards us, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Panic set in, and we ran back to the lodge, our hearts pounding. Over the next few days, we tried to leave the resort, but every path led us back to the same place. It was as if we were trapped in a never-ending loop. The ghostly figures began to appear more frequently, and each encounter left us more terrified. We sought help from the resort staff, but they seemed oblivious to our plight. It was as if they were stuck in their own frowning time. Desperation set in as we realized we were on our own. One night, while searching for a way out, we discovered an old journal hidden in the attic of the main lodge. The journal belonged to the resort's founder, who wrote about a curse placed on the land. According to the journal, the curse could only be lifted by confronting the source of the ghostly figures, the spirits of those who had died tragically in the frowning lake. With no other options, we decided to face the spirits. Armed with only our courage and the knowledge from the journal, we ventured to the lake. The ghostly figures awaited us, their eyes filled with sorrow and anger. As we stood before them, I spoke of our desire to lift the curse and free their souls. The air grew colder, and the spirits began to wail. It was a sound filled with pain and longing. We held our ground, refusing to back down. Gradually, the wailing subsided, and the spirits began to fade. The temperature rose, and the ice on the lake began to melt. We watched in awe as the spirits ascended, freed from their eternal prison. With the curse lifted, the resort returned to normal. The staff regained their awareness, and the eerie occurrences ceased. We left the resort, grateful to be alive and forever changed by the experience. Looking back, I realized that our encounter with the supernatural taught us the true meaning of friendship and courage. We faced our deepest fears and emerged stronger, knowing that some mysteries are best left unsolved. As we drove away from the resort, a sense of relief washed over us. The once vibrant group of friends was now quieter, each lost in their thoughts about the surreal events that had unfolded. We had survived, but the experience had left an indelible mark on our souls. A week later, back in the comfort of my home, I couldn't shake the memories of the resort. The images of the ghostly figures and the freezing cabin played on a loop in my mind. I decided to do some research, delving into the history of the resort and the surrounding area. What I discovered was both fascinating and chilling. The resort had been built on the grounds of an old village, which had been abandoned after a catastrophic avalanche in the early 1900s. Many villagers had perished, their bodies never recovered, buried beneath the snow and ice. Local legends spoke of restless spirits seeking closure, trapped between worlds. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a strange sense of responsibility. The spirits we had encountered were the souls of those villagers, longing for peace, Our actions had somehow freed them, breaking the cycle of torment they had endured for over a century. Months passed, and life slowly returned to normal. My friends and I stayed in touch, our bond strengthened by the harrowing ordeal. We often reminisced about our adventure, recounting the moments of terror and triumph. It was a story we would carry with us forever. One evening, as I sat by the fireplace, the memories resurfaced. I felt a sudden urge to revisit the resort, to see if the changes we had wrought had made a lasting impact. Gathering my courage, I decided to return alone, to confront the past one final time. Driving through the familiar mountain roads, I felt a mix of apprehension and anticipation. As I approached the resort, I noticed subtle changes. The lodge seemed more vibrant, the staff friendlier, and the atmosphere lighter. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted. I made my way to the old cabin, now partially renovated. The grandfather clock still stood, but its hands moved freely, marking the passage of time. I ventured to the frown-seamed lake, now partially thawed, the ghostly figures gone. Standing by the lake, I felt a profound sense of closure. The spirits had found peace, and so had I. The fear and uncertainty had given way to understanding and acceptance. The resort, once a place of dread, now held a special place in my heart, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As I drove back home, I reflected on the journey we had undertaken. We had faced the unknown, conquered our fears, and emerged stronger. The experience had taught us valuable lessons about friendship, courage, and the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. And so, our story came to an end, not with a sense of finality, but with the promise of new beginnings. The frown-seamed memories of that fateful trip would forever be a part of us, a reminder of the bonds we had forged and the spirits we had set free.